Hi everybody, it's Kevin Jenner Productions, or as you know at the STEM class, Kevin Jenner. And I'm reporting to you in the broad room of isolation. 4 weeks. Almost 4 weeks. Can you believe it? Well, nonetheless, we're here to talk about modern STEAM. So let's go into it, because this is a very fascinating subject, and let me hope you enjoy it. So the first thing about modern steam is, well, what is it? Well, a modern steam locomotive is a reincarnation of an existing design. It's based off of a design of something that existed before, but there have been others that were concepted. And most of these builds, though, were made for educational purposes, of course, to inform the public of these machines. But there was one of them, one of which I know of, that was actually for corporate use in modern steam. But how does one build one of these? Well, there's a lot of reasons to build one. And that was, again, to redo that design. But also to relieve problems that that device had. A new version could fix things, much like a program can be fixed by a patch which fixes bugs. And many people actually pay top dollar, of course, to see a modern steam engine. It's one of the great fascinations of the world. But if you were to create anything like that, there are going to be a lot of challenges. To do such a task, there's got to be a lot of planning, especially if you're going to build off of a design. There are thousands of drawings to be converted to CAD, and the parts all have to be machined from scratch. Everything's got to be precise, because everything on a steam locomotive was at some point made from scratch. They did not make it out of a store, they had to make it themselves. Like 5550 is made from the 1940s drawings to CAD. And it's just one of many challenges. Another thing you have to go through, and it's what many groups go through, is monetary problems. These parts are very expensive, and not really for labor-wise, but rather the payment you need to make them. Each part costs a lot in machinery usage, and also if you're making a giant component like a box driver, or even the cylinders, you have to make a casting of it. The driving wheels are what you need to cast, and that's quite a bit of money. The cost of 5550, for example, is $10 million. To build a steam locomotive, that's what it cost back then. But these devices don't exist, so we have to make our own. But has it been done? Well, I'm glad to say it has been. And that feat was already accomplished by our friends across the pond in Britain. They built from 1994 to 2008, they built Tornado, the 462 Pacific, a brand new mainline steam locomotive. And now they're building another one, a 482. Pardon my French, 282 Mikado, nicknamed Prince of Wales. But that's not done yet, it's going to be due next year. But we have had a few projects. We've had a few 440s, that's pretty much it. But we have something very impressive, which is 5550. But there was another locomotive that came before it, and it was for corporate use. This is the Ace 3000. It's a concept locomotive. It was actually made in the 70s by Ross Rowland, and it was made in a very competitive time. It was made during a time when diesel fuel and oil was getting very expensive, and so companies were looking for ways to drop that cost. The Ace 3000 was designed to be an alternative to diesel. Steam overtakes it, and it visually resembles a diesel, but it is not a diesel in any circumstance. It's a 482 locomotive with 2 cylinders, a cab fork configuration with a large firebox. It's also got Walschaerts valve gear. Very complicated. And it was made more like a modern locomotive. It could actually be driven with computers. It had a computer that was going to be on board that could actually maintain boiler pressure and also operate the engine. That's quite an interesting thing. because we can't we can't run even our own diesels with that. So how the heck can you run a steam engine with that? Also, there was not a fireman in this engine. It was all going to be run off of a stoker, which is basically a device that carries coal into the firebox to create the fire that burns the steam, the coal that creates the steam. And it actually has an 8-notch throttle. But this is pretty crazy because I heard it could actually pair with multiple units. But this design really never caught on. There was actually tests done with Chesapeake and Ohio 614 in the 1980s to see if this was actually a reliable source. Maybe that steam power was more effective than diesel. And actually it was. Data found that the engine under load could create a better efficiency cost than diesels. But we never knew because ACE 3000 was not very much a good concept because, well, it was not well received. So it never got made. Although there were a few models of it. Very cool nonetheless. But here's the main prince of the crown. Our pride at the moment. The T1 5550. This is a unique modern steam locomotive. One that I think will revolutionize the world. 5550 is a 4444 duplex, which means it has 4 trailing wheels, one pair of driving wheels, another pair of drivers, and a lead truck, which is 4. It's actually the first in its class to be built in the United States since they were made in 1945. And these things were actually designed to prove, or this example that's being built, was designed to actually see if the claimed speed records were possible. Because people make things up. They want to figure this out. But also, it's a premier excursion locomotive. But also, let's think. High speed for the future. But this thing is capable of a lot of horsepower. One T1 is capable of 6,500 horsepower with a 65,000 pounds of tractive effort and uses the poppet valve. This, like Tornado, is instrumental in the future of motive power in the US. And it won't be done for another 10 years. It'll be done in 2030. This locomotive could actually create another ACE 3000 in a way. Because if we start looking toward that for alternatives, perhaps steam is still efficient as diesels. Then again, we live in the 21st century. We could possibly modernize the engine to the point where it could run like a steam engine but have less emissions. We have to wait and see. But until then, that's a pretty fascinating technology, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Goodbye, everybody. Stay safe out there.